Welcome to the Global Business Chat series. In these interviews, Wes is chatting about all things business to serious professionals from a variety of industries. Listen in to hear more about their challenges, opportunities, and the lessons they've learned along the way.
Hi Dean, thanks for joining the Global Business Chat today. How are you?
All good, thank you.
Excellent. I just thought we could start off by, if you could give a brief background to your history really within the construction industry.
History, I started in construction in civil engineering, worked my way up from site foreman, site management, then went back to university at 28, did a degree in quantity surveying, became a QS. 6 years later, went into partnership with Brian Hart and formed Pure Construction as it is today. Also a director of Pure Plumbing and Heating.
Excellent, thank you. So during your time within the construction industry, what would you say has been kind of one of the biggest bloopers? Like how much has it cost and what did you learn from it?
In terms of?
Kind of like mistakes, I suppose, for a better word. So like errors or mistakes, or a contract that didn't turn out quite as you thought it would, or a contract that ended up costing you more?
I think one of the biggest things as sort of business owners is understanding cash flow, understanding your responsibilities under the contract, and then bringing multiple projects together at one time and understanding where your finance is going to be stretched. And yeah, in respect of that, not everything runs as smoothly as you would like, and managing people as well as finance is probably one of the biggest challenges that you would face. And in the middle of that, when we started, we were at the start of or we're in the middle of the recession, and then obviously now the COVID situation coming on the back of that as well.
So it's interesting when you said about the number of multiple kind of contracts on the go. Is there any contracts where they've ended up being better than what you kind of thought they would be? And by better, I mean like costs are coming lower, or there are some nice surprises that where you kind of grew that element or found a niche?
Well, obviously, being a QS, you it's a double-edged sword, really, because when the projects become, are highly profitable, everyone's patting you on the back. But obviously, equally, when they don't go as well, obviously, you then need to look into, what went wrong in effect. Now, the thing about construction, there's so many mitigating factors that could affect a project. I've had a project literally. In the last month, we were delayed 6 weeks with weather. Now, in turn, so sub-zero temperatures, rain. Now, all of the work was external at that point. So the project overrun, and now I am in negotiations to recoup my preliminary costs back from the client. And the client is saying that I should have built in risk because of the time of the year. I should have known that it was going to rain or be sub-zero temperatures, and therefore I should carry that cost. I'm not the weatherman, and I'm certainly not God either. So.
Add that to your repertoire, being a weatherman.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. That's one of the factors. Is there any other factors that have come in other than weather?
Well, design. We're doing a lot of design and builds, which obviously there's always a risk because you've got your outline design brief, and then you take the architect's intentions or the structural engineer's intentions, and then obviously you then develop that design to fulfil that brief. Now, to get between A and B is not always a smooth process, and then you've got an element of working with engineers and architects to achieve what you need to achieve, but also in our industry, we're not always working with new build properties, so we're working with old buildings. There's all sort of, but with the D&B, as you know, generally it'll be an all risk scenario. So it can be anything from, you know, finding an old petrol tank in contaminated ground. You could have asbestos. You could have structural elements that you can't see from the offset. You know, you may uncover stuff. You know, and all of that is down to risk from a finance perspective, depending on how the contract's set up.
Sure. What's the most unusual thing you found when you've kind of started a contract, so to speak?
In Priory School in Portsmouth, we found loads of underground tunnels that were all part of the railway previously. So when we've excavated the ground, obviously there was numerous voids underneath the ground that A, had to be removed, and B, had to then be remediated to bring the ground back to a structural playing field where you could then pull footings that would obviously then support the building.
Okay, did that delay the contract or extend it?
That delayed the contract months.
Really?
And the problem is with that is you then get into the battle with the client's QS of where that risk is apportioned, and ultimately who pays for it.
And what was the outcome? Just out of interest on that. Who did pay for it?
So the outcome was that all of the structure had to be broken out, and then the ground had to be built back up in 150 layers, and compacted. It was months of work in the end.
And was it, the cost-wise, did it come down to the client or to you guys, or?
There was an element that we had to carry, but that ultimately with the client, it was deemed unforeseen. Yeah, so in the end, we managed to get a fair portion of the money back.
Oh, excellent. So you previously mentioned about design work. Do you tend to do the design work in-house, or do you have like a specialist contractor you go to?
So we do all of the design work. We use specialists, so structural engineers, architects, damp proof. We outsource that, and then obviously going on to obviously what you guys do is we need to make sure that they got the proper professional indemnity cover. Ultimately, the chain of events would be, you know, that if something went wrong, they would come after us, and then we would have to then obviously go after the independent specialist.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good point. So on that, it's to make sure that the contractors you use have the same level of cover as your own professional indemnity policy, and very much your own professional indemnity policy is like a contingency cover. By contingency, I mean that you're the main contractor. So if there was a fault or a financial loss due to the design work, it would fall to you first. You would then contact us. We deal with the claim, and then your insurers would look to recover any costs against the contractor's professional indemnity. So yeah, it's a really good point. Thank you. So on some previous conversations I've had with some other contractors, team has come out as very important. And by team, it's having their own contractors, so like structural engineers, architects, designers, and then your own team of like labourers, bona fide subcontractors. Is that the same for you?
Well, we moved away from a lot of our in-house guys have all moved sort of PAYE now.
Okay.
Our subcontractors are vetted and obviously have to do a pre-qualification questionnaire where we ask for their insurances, their accreditations, and obviously that they've got the ability to do the job to a standard that we would be happy with.
Okay. No, that sounds good. Thank you. So another thing that we've noticed, because you guys do a fair few tenders, don't you, for various contracts, just in the kind of niche construction industry that you're in. And we've noticed a high demand for the insurance questionnaires, where your client, if you like, are asking for these questionnaires and asking for higher levels of cover, in particular like 10 million on public liability. Have you noticed any differences in the tender process over the last year or so?
Well, certainly touching on what you just said, really, I'm forever sending Ryan exactly what you just said, confirmation that our insurances are valid and are up to a level. I've noticed, obviously, the professional indemnity, the levels of that seems, A, it costs more, and B, obviously, the level of cover seems to have increased quite a lot. I've also been asked for higher levels of cover on gas work, obviously cladding, high-rise buildings, all of that is certainly coming into play.
No, I agree. High-rise buildings, especially after Grenfell, has been a big topic, and has been one of the major contributions to the rise in premiums, actually, on professional indemnity. So
I think everyone's waiting for the RICS. They're currently looking into this cladding and are going to revise some of the legislation for buildings over 18 metres. So I think everyone's waiting on that with bated breath to see what the outcome of that is, and certainly people's levels of cover and stuff like that will be affected by that, I would have thought.
Absolutely. Do you know when the outcome's due on that?
I heard a rumour that there's going to be an announcement very soon.
Right, okay.
Because what's happening, I think, is obviously buildings. Obviously, I've been involved with a fire damage in Gunwharf, for instance. We were involved with that. Buildings that have sort of performed pretty well in a fire scenario, and obviously they're now looking at the two different types of insulation, and whether I think the sticking point is whether it's combustible or flammable, and that's the sticking point of whether the material is deemed to be not fit for a purpose over 18 metres. I think that's what the general consensus is.
Right, okay. That sounds good as well. So where do you see the biggest opportunities in the construction industry at the moment?
The biggest opportunities that I've seen a major change in is the domestic refurb, extensions, home improvements. Our phone has not stopped ringing, whether that is because people are sat at home looking at the four walls or their garden or and thinking I need to do something, but our phone is just literally non-stop with people looking to do home improvements, really. Similarly, the commercial market, which was one of our biggest outlets, with the shops being shut, pubs being shut, restaurants being shut, there's not an awful lot going on there at the minute, but I do believe that it's going to be in a minute when obviously everyone goes back, no maintenance has been done, no improvements have been done. I do feel that although that market has stopped, it's going to be sort of pent up, and that market is going to go crazy in a minute as well, would have thought.
Do you see any shifts with regards to, say, like smaller office spaces or conversions? The reason I ask is that we've, over the past 12 months, kind of seen like a 360 where first lockdown, a lot of businesses were thinking about getting rid of offices completely. People were working from home, and it seemed to be going quite well. Whereas the latest lockdown, businesses have come to realise that productivity has reduced quite significantly with people working from home. There's been question marks around kind of isolation, mental health. So they're almost looking that actually they do need offices, but maybe offices combined with flexi work. So like smaller offices rather than big head offices.
Yeah, I think that's a fine balance. I think in the first lockdown, obviously it was new to everyone, maybe where people couldn't work from home before. And then I think the drain of having pets, kids, and the such like has slowly worn everyone down. And maybe it weren't such a great thing at the start. I think for sort of big conglomerates and stuff like that, I think they will view it as I think that you're always going to have an office environment. I think, and maybe people have sort of come back round to that idea, like you said, gone full circle. I think maybe it'll be a happy balance going forward. Like you said, maybe 2 days a week at home, maybe three in the office.
And do you see much opportunity with conversions, so like commercial to resi at all?
I've seen an absolute massive increase in that. Commercial properties been empty, converting them into flats. That seems to. I've had an awful lot of inquiries in that realm at the minute. So there must be, even on the high street and offices and stuff above, shops and stuff like that. They've just been sat there, no one in. So I think you're going to see a lot of developers and sort of snapping them up at reasonable rates, and then obviously looking to fit those out to change them to sort of domestic dwellings.
Okay, so it kind of leads me on to the next one. Really, it's a bit of a crystal ball time in the fact of where you see the construction industry going in the next 5 years.
So everyone I speak to, whether that be suppliers, subcontractors, main contractors, seem to have been the busiest that they've ever been. Obviously, the construction industry, was the government sort of deemed it to continue regardless of COVID. I feel there'd be a lull at some point, maybe, but certainly at the minute it's in a sort of upward trajectory.
Yeah, no, I agree. We've seen quite a few clients that are thriving, really, similar to yourselves, where turnover's going up. We don't know if it's a pent-up demand or if it's, like you said, people being at home on furlough where they've been thinking about having work done and getting that work done. So, and it's interesting. It's made a difference to kind of the insurance aspect of it. Only the fact that obviously having these increases is just keeping the insurers aware, because when a claim occurs, if the insurers aren't aware about these increases, it can cause issues with claims, especially with likes of turnover, wages, whether that be split between labour only or bona fide. So, It's interesting. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Finally, really, any tips for new developers, new contractors that are starting a business and coming into the construction industry? What would be your top tips? I was going to say a number, but let's not put a number on it. Don't.
It's not as easy as it looks.
No.
I just think you've got to have a good concept, a good understanding of your numbers and nerves of steel, and and ambition, really. If you're going to do it, don't do it half-hearted, and you've got to dedicate your sort of life and soul to making it work, and only then, if it's a success or failure, you can say, well, I'll give it my best shot.
Absolutely. And is it really important to have that kind of fundamental team around you, or to build it at an early stage?
The only other thing I would say is I think every business owner will say that they learn by their mistakes. So I think, as you move forward from inception to obviously growing your business, you are going to make mistakes. Provided you learn from them and move on, then you're probably going to end up successful, I would have thought.
Absolutely, I echo that. I think once you make one mistake, as long as you don't make it again, which you very rarely do, it should be okay. But it's how you learn.
Yeah, I think it's slightly different when you make a mistake and it's your own money. It hurts that little bit more.
Definitely. Hence, you never make it again.
Thank you for listening to the Gloshaw Business Chat series. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, or if you'd like to discuss how we can help your business mitigate the risks you face, please email Wes on wesleyhaines@glowshaw.co.uk.